I never imagined that one quiet morning in Sector 9 of the Outer Rim would end with me standing in the throne room of an alien monarchy, my hands trembling as I tried to understand what was happening. Yet here I was, a human biologist named Eli Turner, staring at a figure that could only be described as regal beyond comprehension. The alien queen. Her skin shimmered in iridescent hues that shifted like oil on water, and her eyes were liquid silver, reflecting every thought before she spoke them. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was intrigued, my curiosity masking the fear that clawed at my chest. "You are Eli Turner," she said, her voice like chimes in a storm. "I have heard of your studies on interspecies empathy. My daughter wishes to see a human." It was surreal. I had dedicated my life to studying alien fauna, plant life, and occasionally sentient creatures, but I had never imagined I would be summoned by royalty. Alien royalty, no less, simply because a young princess wanted to see me. I am honored, Your Majesty," I stammered. "But why me?" The Queen's gaze was calm but unyielding. "Because she trusts your species in ways my advisors cannot. Do not question my command, human. You will come." And with that, I was whisked away aboard a starship unlike any I had seen. Its architecture was organic, with walls that seemed alive, pulsating gently as if the ship itself were breathing. I could hear whispers of energy running through conduits of crystalline light. I gripped the railing, trying to steady my nerves, realizing fully that my life had changed irreversibly. The throne room was vast, impossibly so. Its ceilings arched miles above, curving into a canopy of glittering light that mimicked the cosmos itself. At the center stood the Queen, flanked by attendants whose forms were constantly shifting, like living liquid metal. But my eyes were drawn immediately to the young princess. She was unlike anything I had seen. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were a luminous green, framed by hair that moved as if underwater, constantly flowing despite the lack of wind. She approached with a cautious elegance, each step measured, and stopped a few meters away from me. I wanted to see one of your kind," she said softly, her voice lilting like a melody I could almost understand, but couldn't fully grasp. "I've never seen a human before, not in person." I swallowed, aware that every gesture, every word I made, was being observed not only by her, but by the entire court. "I'm Eli Turner. I study alien life, though I must admit, meeting you is beyond anything I imagined." Her lips curved in a tentative smile. "My mother said I could trust you. Humans are so fragile, yet so resilient. I wanted to understand, to know why your species survives when everything else is so easily destroyed." The words struck me. There was an honesty in her curiosity that no amount of diplomacy or protocol could manufacture. For the first time, I realized I was not just an observer in her world. I was a bridge, a link between two species that had never truly understood each other. Learning to trust. The next days were a whirlwind. I was given quarters that felt like living organisms, soft and warm, adapting to my presence. Meals were strange yet nourishing, composed of substances that changed flavor depending on the eater's preference. But the most fascinating part was the princess's curiosity. She asked me endless questions about human emotions, history, why humans fought wars despite knowing the cost, why we loved despite suffering. I answered as best I could, careful not to reveal too much that could destabilize her understanding. One evening, while we watched the twin moons of her planet rise over a crystalline ocean, she turned to me. "Do you ever fear us, my people?" I paused. It was a difficult question, one that required honesty without betrayal. "At first, yes. You are powerful and your ways, they are not like ours. But fear doesn't last when you learn to understand someone. I don't fear you anymore." Her gaze softened. "That is why I wanted to meet you. Humans are brave. Not because of strength, but because of heart." And in that moment, I realized that this was more than a meeting of curiosity. It was the beginning of a connection that could change her world and mine forever. The threat emerges. But not everyone in the court was pleased with our interaction. One of the Queen's generals, a creature called Varnock, whose body resembled jagged obsidian fused with living flame, approached me one morning. "You are not welcome here, human," he growled, his voice resonating like tectonic plates shifting. "This child does not understand the consequences of interacting with your kind. Our enemies, the Zarathians, will see this as weakness." "I mean no harm," I said calmly. "I only wish to share understanding." Varnock sneered. "Understanding does not protect you from power. You will either leave, or you will become a pawn." His threat lingered in the air like toxic smoke. I knew he was right to some degree. My presence could be seen as a diplomatic signal or as a vulnerability. But the princess refused to allow fear to dictate her actions. "I choose to see him," she declared to the court, her voice unwavering. "He is my guest. And if my mother ordered it, then it is my right to learn." The Queen, for the first time since my arrival, gave a subtle nod. "You have been wise to heed my orders. Let none challenge them. This human is under my protection. Do not test me." Bond Beyond Worlds days turned into weeks, and our connection deepened. I taught her about human art, music, and stories. She, in turn, shared the histories of her people. Wars fought over stars, alliances forged in fire, the delicate balance of life on planets that could crush a human in seconds. One night, she confessed a fear I hadn't anticipated. "I sometimes feel trapped, Eli. I am meant to rule someday, to make decisions that affect billions. But I am still a child in many ways. I wanted to meet a human because I hoped it would remind me of simpler things, of freedom." Her vulnerability was a mirror to my own. "We all feel trapped sometimes," I said gently. "Even humans. But connection, understanding another being, that gives freedom its meaning." She reached out, her hand barely brushing mine. The contact was electrifying, not in danger, but in the sense that two entirely different worlds could touch without annihilating each other. Crisis at the gates. Our peace, however, was not destined to last. The Zarathians, a neighboring warlike species, had detected my presence and saw it as a threat to the balance of power. Their fleets appeared at the edge of the atmosphere, and alarms blared through the palace. The Queen summoned me to the War Council. "You have done well, Eli Turner," she said. "But your species' fragility is now a liability. I must ask, will you stay, knowing the danger?" I swallowed hard. "I will stay, not because I am fearless, but because I trust the princess. And I believe understanding can prevent war." The Queen studied me, then nodded slowly. "So be it. We will face this together." The battle was unlike any I had imagined. Ships moved with impossible speed, energy weapons lanced across the sky, and yet the princess remained calm, coordinating defenses, her eyes glowing as she interfaced with the palace's systems. I assisted as best I could, guiding her strategies with human logic, sometimes catching gaps the alien mind overlooked. By dawn, the Zarathians were repelled, their fleet scattered. The cost had been high, but the alliance between human intuition and alien power had proven invaluable. Resolution and farewell. After the battle, the Queen called me once more. "You have done more than I anticipated, human. You have shown that connection can alter destinies. My daughter, she has grown because of you." The princess appeared, her expression serene yet tinged with sadness. "I wish you could stay," she said softly. "But I understand you have a world to return to. Still, you have changed how I see everything." I felt the weight of leaving, of returning to my fragile human existence after witnessing a civilization so vast and complex. "I will never forget this," I said. "Nor will I forget you." She smiled, a small, wistful curve of lips. "Perhaps one day you will return. Perhaps our worlds will meet again." As I boarded the ship back to human space, I realized something profound. The alien queen's order had not merely been an experiment in curiosity. It had been an act of faith. And her daughter had reminded me that even in the vastness of the universe, connection, understanding, and empathy could bridge the most impossible divides. Looking back at the shimmering palace fading into the distance, I whispered to myself, "I came as a human, but I leave as something more. A friend of the stars." The battle had ended, but the palace remained quiet. The twin moons of her world reflected off the crystalline towers, casting long, glittering shadows across the halls. I walked through corridors that still hummed faintly with residual energy from the conflict, feeling the weight of what had happened. Lives had been risked, civilizations had teetered on the edge, and yet here I was, still standing, still human. The queen summoned me to the central chamber. This time, the air felt softer, almost forgiving. "Eli Turner," she began, her voice carrying the same authority as before but laced with a rare warmth. "You have changed the course of this planet, and perhaps even the destiny of our species. You have taught my daughter empathy, courage, and the value of connection. For that, you have my gratitude." The princess appeared beside her mother, her eyes shining brighter than ever, reflecting both relief and sadness. She reached out, brushing a glowing strand of her hair from her face. "I wanted to see the universe through human eyes," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "And I have. I've learned that courage doesn't come from power, but from the willingness to care, to risk, and to trust. That is what makes humans extraordinary." I felt my throat tighten. "You've reminded me that even in worlds far from home, hope and understanding can survive. You've shown me the meaning of courage in a way I never could have imagined." She smiled faintly, a mix of innocence and wisdom beyond her years. "Promise me one thing, Eli, that when you return to your world, you will tell everyone that the universe is not as cold as they think. That other beings, even those who seem terrifying or alien, can be friends, allies, maybe even family." "I promise," I said, my voice barely a whisper, choked with emotion. The queen's gaze softened, her silver eyes reflecting a depth that humans could hardly comprehend. "You may return to your world, Eli Turner. But know this, your bond with my daughter, with my people, will endure. You're welcome here anytime. You are one of us in spirit." For a long moment, we simply stood there. Words failed to convey the emotions that had built over weeks: fear, fascination, relief, admiration, and an unspoken bond that transcended species. Then, with a gentle nod, the princess whispered, "Goodbye for now." The journey back to human space was silent. I looked out the window of the ship as the alien world receded into the distance. Its towers shimmered like distant stars, a testament to beauty, power, and life far beyond human imagination. I felt changed, not just by the experience but by the connection I had forged. Weeks later, I returned to my lab on Earth. Everything seemed smaller, quieter, almost insignificant compared to what I had witnessed. Yet, the memory of the princess, her curiosity, and the courage of her people remained vivid. I began writing, documenting every moment, every lesson, every insight I had gained. My studies shifted from mere observation of alien life to a broader mission, to build bridges between worlds, to teach humans that understanding was the greatest power of all. And sometimes at night, when I gazed at the stars, I imagined her eyes, luminous and green, looking back at me from across the cosmos. I imagined her smiling and thinking of me as I thought of her, two beings separated by light years, yet connected by something far stronger than distance: trust, friendship, and hope. Then one evening, as I stared at the night sky, a subtle shimmer appeared in the darkness, a small signal, barely noticeable, yet unmistakable. A message from her world. Eli, come back soon. There is more to see, more to learn, more to become. And in that moment, I knew this was not an ending. It was the beginning of a story that would stretch across the stars. A story of two worlds learning to understand each other, of bonds that defied fear and distance, and of a human and an alien princess who had discovered that the universe was a little smaller, a little warmer, because they had chosen to see each other. I smiled, feeling hope swell in a way I had never felt before. And as the stars stretched infinitely before me, I whispered, I'll come back. I promise.